Hello and welcome to the unfortunate episode of the Pint Size Analyze podcast off-season edition. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the Seattle Mariners' final week of the season. Well, I actually am more going to be discussing what happened. I'm going to be discussing some positive steps individually by players. I'm going to be kind of talking about the whole season. And then I'm going to get into the disaster of a press conference that happened yesterday. But I'll be saving that until the end of the episode. I obviously have some thoughts on it that I would like to share, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the Mariners season is officially over. They were eliminated on Saturday, September 30th. They played their final game on Sunday. It is now Wednesday, October 4th. So they played their last game 3 days ago. This is how things stacked up. Ended up in the American League West. The Mariners won 88 games. Astros won 90. The Rangers won 91. And then in terms of the stats leaders, here's how it ended up being. Julio was the team's most valuable player with J.P. Crawford finishing at 4.9 WAR. Cal Raleigh finishing at 4.7 FWAR. And I actually want to talk about Cal Raleigh's season because I feel like some people may not be aware of this. But if you go right here and then right here, and then I've gone to, this is on Fangraphs, I've selected Mariners, I've selected split seasons, 1977, the franchise's inception, to this year, and then if I click primary position catcher, and then I filtered by 400 plate appearances because more often than not, a catcher is not going to be a qualified hitter. Cal ended up being a qualified hitter this year. But if we go to the franchise leaders in F4, or for a single season by a catcher, we'll see that Cal Raleigh had the best season by .1 F4 in franchise history by a catcher. He finished with 4.7 F4. Like I said, that finished 1.1 point ahead of 2017 Mike Zunino and 0.5 F4 ahead of 2022 Cal Raleigh. Who finished with 4.2 F4. He actually had a lower WRC plus on the season. As you can see, he finished with a 120 last year versus with a 111 this year. But he also had over 150 more plate appearances this year, and he played in 35 more games, or 25 more games this year, 26 more games. So there's obviously a difference. But it's kind of shows that maybe WAR is kind of like a rate basis stat. Well, it is a rate basis stat, like it's kind of a counting stat. And those extra 150 plate appearances obviously impact that. Those extra 150 plate appearances obviously impact that and allow him to get more. But he could be pushing like a 5.1 WAR season if he finishes with a 120 WRC plus like he did last year. And if he finishes with a 120 WRC plus like he did in 2022, along with like more, in the 570 plate appearance range again, I think a 5.2 WAR season is very, very likely for Cal. And for him to, break his own franchise record of the most valuable season in franchise history by a catcher. So I thought that was really, really interesting that, he broke the franchise record for that. That is something that I just find exciting. And then I also wanted to do the same thing for JP, just to kind of put into context how good his season was as a shortstop. So if we go right here, we'll see that it was the fourth best season in franchise history by a shortstop, sandwiched in there with A-Rod 5 times. And A-Rod had some insane seasons, like in 2000, just was nearly a 10 WAR player, 9 WAR player in 1996, and then 8 WAR player in 1998. So he was putting up some really, really big seasons that JP, realistically didn't come close to, but it was still a very, very notable season and one of the best in franchise history. And a huge part of that was, if we see like right there with the defense, A-Rod was just, he was getting so much value because of his elite defense as well. That obviously played a factor. And 2021 JP was 10th, and then I believe that 2022 JP was 14th, which that makes sense because 2021 JP was still considered good defensively by like Fangraphs, and then and by like Altibo average. And then if we go by WRC plus, it was the 5th best season in franchise history by WRC plus, and then I know this is kind of a random stat, but it was the 2nd best season in franchise history by walk percentage for a shortstop, which having a shortstop that can get on base is really, really important. If we go to on base percentage, it's 3rd, So 380 on base percentage, absolutely fantastic. JP had a 14.7 walk rate this year. That was easily the best on the team. If we go not like that, if we go right here, actually Trammell had a better walk rate, but in a much smaller sample size, and Trammell was pretty 3 true outcome. As you can see, he had 3 home runs, and then there was that 16% walk rate and 40% K rate. But yeah, JP had the highest walk rate for a hitter with over like 100 plate appearances. Yeah, definitely. And then Sam Haggerty actually had a 13.9% walk rate. That's interesting. But yeah, and then if we go to, let's see who led the team in WRC Plus. Tom Murphy ended up finishing the season in team lead for WRC Plus. And then Murphy is an interesting player because I'm curious to see if he gets extended this or offseason. I know that Dipoto said he wanted to. Dipoto and Servais both said that they planned for Murphy to come back around. But if we go right here for Tom Murphy, so I believe that the date that his season really kind of started to turn around was, I'm pretty sure that it was April 27th. So let's go to April 27th and let's see. Because I believe after April 27th, he had a 180 WRC plus. That's just crazy. So yeah, Murphy after April 27th. Now, granted, it was only 130 plate appearances, but Murphy was raking. And I really, really hope that he can come back next year as the backup catcher because I think he's a great backup who just mashes lefties. And one thing that was interesting about Murph this year as well was that he didn't just mash lefties. Now, I believe that the 144 WRC plus against lefties could be sustainable. I don't know if the 137 against righties is, but for him to mash both was excellent. And if he continues mashing righties next year, I hope they re-sign him even more. Obviously, we won't know that immediately, though. And then this is another player that I really, really wanted to give a focus on. This is Josh Rojas. He had he was acquired in the Canzone Canzone Bliss and Rojas for Seawald trade. And if we go to, so as you'll see right here, between 618 and 729, Rojas barely played. So it took him a while to get it going again. But if we go from August 11th until the end of the season, he had a 127 WRC plus with a 7.4% walk rate, 22.3 K rate, in 120 plate appearances. He had 34 hits, 4 doubles, 4 home runs, 24 runs, and then 14 RBI, 6 stolen bases as well, 349 WOBA, 304 average, 355 on base, 446 slugging, and like I said, that 127 WRC plus. So and Rojas as a lefty, I believe that Rojas can hit lefties too, but it's just really, really exciting because Rojas came over as well. If you go to the partial seasons, he came over as a Diamondback with a 62 WRC plus overall in the season, negative 0.1 F4 overall. Just was not hitting very great. And then as a Mariner he had a 104 WRC plus, put up 1.2 F4, batted 270 with a 320 on base and 400 slugging. Like he was putting up really, really good numbers from the second base position, or for a second baseman as a Mariner, and that's something that I really, really would. I hope that we can expect that kind of production from him going forward because he proved to be very valuable. And like a 110 WRC plus season out of Rojas, I don't think is out of the possibility because that's what he did in 2022. He had a 110 WRC plus. And he's always been versatile. He's always been like positionally versatile. He can play like outfield. He can play second. He can play third. There's value in there for what he can do as like a base runner and stuff. And then if we go to right here to Savant page. So we could see if we go to the. So yeah, he had like a 319 xWOBA over his last 50 plate appearances on September 30th. And that was the last game of the season that he played. So like that's really, really respectable out of the shortstop position. That's I'm fine with that. Like a 320 xWOBA is, I would say, respectable. And like adequate. That's the word I'm looking for. And then if we go to that, and then I wanted to look at Canzone as well. Canzone was kind of interesting because he had some really, really good moments as a Mariner, and he obviously hits the ball hard as well. So yeah, Canzone can hit the ball hard. Yeah, max exit velocity 111, and then he had a 12.1 barrel percentage. So he really really has feel for the barrel. Now that's a small sample size, but he really really has a good feel for the barrel. He doesn't strike out a lot, doesn't walk a lot either though. Um, but also has like a good like a good hard hit percentage. That barrel percentage is really just what sticks out to me, though. But he just hits the ball hard. 475 slugging, like I said, 12.1 barrel percentage. Doesn't strike out a lot. I don't know if he's a starter going forward or immediately, but I think that there's something with Canzone, absolutely. And then if we go to his season as well, we'll go right here, partial seasons as a Mariner. Yeah, so as a Mariner, he actually fared worse offensively and was a negative WAR player, but it's like just not the best results, quite frankly. But I think that there's something going forward with Dom Canzone, and I hope there is obviously as well. And then if we go to there was one other player that I wanted to mention. That was Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez will be a free agent this year. In the aforementioned disaster presser that happened yesterday, they said that he was. They've already made a decision about whether they're going to give him the qualifying offer. Which, if you need a quick reminder, the qualifying offer is a 1-year deal that a player can get. If they accept it, then they play for that franchise for 1 year. If they don't, then the franchise that they do sign with loses a draft pick, and the Mariners will get that draft pick, or get a draft pick. But if we, as you can see right here, so this was a pretty honestly not a great season for Teoscar. He had kind of a good second half, and he had some really really good months, like his August and his June in particular. June he had a 160 WRC plus, and then August a 191 WRC plus. But then in like the other months, in March, April, May, and then July and September, he was like just not a good hitter. And he also has like real questions about his plate discipline. He's got a 5.6% walk rate and a 31% strikeout rate. Like there's absolutely questions about his plate discipline. And if we go to, this is actually like something that I generally don't like to look at because I don't believe that strikeouts matter individually. I believe that you can be a good hitter individually regardless of strikeouts, but that's not what I meant to do. Okay, why is this advertisement so obnoxious? Okay, batting. I don't understand. Okay, there we go. So if we go to team stats and then, oh wait, no, not team stats, player stats. All right, this is for the American League. Now, this is something that I've seen, and as you can see, the Mariners had 3 hitters in the top 5 for strikeouts. Cal Raleigh was 12th in the American League, and then JP was 30th. Like there was, although it's mostly these guys in the top 5, the 3 in the top 5 that I think people had a big issue with. I'll say this: when you have guys, I don't know if it's good to have that many players organizationally or like as a team that strike out that much. But like if you're looking at a player like Julio or Teoscar who's going to play every day, it kind of would make sense that they're going to strike out. And even like a player like JP who doesn't strike out a lot overall, still ends up 30th on this list because of the fact that he was playing so much. So it's strikeouts are kind of a counting stat, but it's still something that I would hope that they could work on next year, like as a team, less strikeouts. And Dipoto said that in the end of season press conference. They want to get some players, and they want to have a lineup that doesn't strike out as much next year. That's a priority. And then if we go to WAR leaders for pitching, Kirby led the pack by a win. Castillo 3.4, Gilbert 3.2, exactly what he finished with last year. Matt Brash had 2.1 F4. Like I said, that's like the second best, or no, not second best, but it's the best season by a Mariners reliever in terms of F4 since 2018 Edwin Diaz. So Brash had a really, really good season, 35% strikeout rate, like just excellent all around for Brash. Really, really good. 2.27 FIP, 3.05 XFIP, 3.06 ERA, like just all around excellent. Bryce Miller finished with 1.9 F4, Andres Munoz 1.3, Justin Topa 1.1, Paul Sewell 1 F4, Brian Wu 1 F4, and then Trevor Gott 0.6, Marco 0.6, Gabe Spire 0.6, Isaiah Campbell, and then Emerson Hancock finished with 0.2 F4. He finished, although he literally had 3 starts, but he finished with a 4.09 FIP. And then okay, so this is something that I found earlier. And again, this is by... Yes, okay. So if we go to... I went to Fangraphs and I sorted positional pitching. Or not positional pitching, I mean. I sorted by age range. So I went from 18 to 26 and then all teams. And this is sorted by team stats. And because I was curious, although I... All right, so this is the Major League Leaders Team WAR. Team F4 in pitchers age 18 to 26. The Mariners lead the pack by 4.2 F4 behind the Marlins. Now the Marlins have been known for the past few years for their young pitching, but I just thought this was such a really, really cool stat. The Mariners lead by almost 50% over the second best team in terms of F4 for pitchers 26 and under this year. That's just such a cool thing and such a this is just visual proof of how good the pitching development organizationally has become, and then I was like, okay, well, what if we sort it by starters, and they lead still, and what if we sort it by relievers? They lead still. So the Mariners had the most production from relievers ages 18 to 26. And the most production from starting pitchers ages 18 to 26. That is just so cool to me. And then if we go right here as well to strikeout rate, the Mariners are second. And then if we go to walk rate, they are 11th. Okay, so actually not that great of a walk rate. But if we go... Oh, no, this is just for relievers, though. All pitching. Okay, so if we go to advanced, and then they are 5th in strikeout percentage, second in walk percentage. Actually, I don't know why they're second, though. They should be tied for first. So first in walk percentage, essentially. And first in K minus walk percentage. That is just all around excellent. It seems like they're doing the right stuff in terms of pitching development. 7th in home runs per 9. 3rd in xFIP. 2nd in Sierra, 2nd in ERA, 3rd in FIP, and then left on... No, wait. WHIP. WHIP is the other one. 1st in WHIP. Now, I know that WHIP doesn't matter as much as a stat anymore, but like, these are just, like, those are just some statistics that show, like the pitching development has been excellent, and they're getting results, and they led the league in it this year, and that's really, really exciting to me. Now I wanted to now that we're done talking about all of that, we can now talk about the disaster class of a presser that happened yesterday. So the Mariners held their end of season press conference, which they usually do, 3rd in home run to fly ball percentage. But the Mariners held their end of season press conference, as they usually do, and it was a disaster. Now, it doesn't really strike me as that it's honestly not that surprising. I kind of got the feeling that no matter what was going to be said, the fans were going to be upset. The fans felt like, and myself included, felt like this, could have been a better team. They could have won some more games. So I kind of got the feeling going into it that no matter what was going to be said, the fans were not going to appreciate it. What was said, I didn't expect. So this is the clip that went viral. This is from Jake M. Garcia. He's a sports reporter for King 5 Seattle. And let's just give this clip a listen.
If you go back and you look in a decade, those teams that win 54% of the time always wind up in the postseason, and they more often than not wind up in World Series. So there's your bigger picture process. Nobody wants to hear the goal this year is we're going to win 54% of the time, because sometimes 54% is some. One year you're going to win 60%, another year you're going to win 50%. It's whatever it is, but over time, that type of mindset gets you there. If what you're doing is focusing year to year on what do we have to do to win the World Series this year, you might be one of the teams that's laying in the mud and can't get up for another decade. So we're actually doing the fan base a favor and asking for their patience to win the World Series while we continue to build a sustainably good roster.
Okay, so that part right there was awful. Indefensible. I mean, let's just give it a listen again.
You might be one of the teams that's laying in the mud and can't get up for another decade. So we're actually doing the fan base a favor.
Yeah, nothing to laugh about, Jerry. I'm sorry, but I just don't know. That is now it. Now this is from Travis Sawchik, and this is he said he's a writer for The Score, and he pointed out, fans won't like it, but the majority of GMs think this way, which makes this goal more difficult since it's a zero-sum game, and clubs that have won 54% of games over the past 10 seasons: Dodgers, Yankees, Cardinals, Guardians, Astros. That's it. So the Mariners, if they had, I'll say that's an elite group of clubs. That's a group of clubs that generally from year to year have had success. But I am just like, I understand. I understand. I just want to find it really quick. Where is it? This tweet. All right, well, anyway, like,
can you look in a decade, those teams that win 54% of.
So I think that he makes a good point there, in that I think that he makes a good point in that you want to, and fans may not like this, and I understand the frustration with this. You want to make sure that you're setting the club up for not just success in the current year, but in the future. I feel like that's a way that he could have said it. And I feel like there was a certain level of room reading that needed to happen yesterday that just wasn't happened by Dipoto. When the team misses out on the playoffs by one game and they are eliminated with one game left to play, I feel like, and like I said, I feel like no matter what answer was given to fans, they were going to be upset. But that's still a time in the postseason press conference. I still feel like if there's any answer that you should have given, it's still, we just want to make the team better in any avenue this offseason. We understand that we fell short of an overall goal to get to 90 wins, or not to get to 90 wins. We have no goal of getting to wins. We have a goal of getting to the postseason. And that should be what I feel like that could have been the message. That should have been the message. And I feel like the reception, if that was a message that, we didn't do everything we could this year to get to the postseason. We want to do everything that we can this offseason to make the club better. I feel like if those words are said, this outrage from the fans doesn't happen. And, there's still going to be some fans, like I said, who are upset about that. I always knew that this roster wasn't going to make the playoffs. I always knew this roster wasn't good enough to win a division. Okay, and Dipoto said that later. But I just think that if there was any other... If there was any answer that should have been given in the press conference yesterday, it was we fell short of our goal for this year. We need to do everything in our power to get better and to be able to actually win a division next year because we fell short of that this year. And then there was also a quote later in this exact same press conference where he said, I do think that this was a step forward for us organizationally. And I just, I can understand where he's coming from. Individually, there were absolutely some steps forward. The Mariners had 3 different starting pitchers make their debut this year, and make their MLB debut this year. That's unheard of. That is absolutely a step in the right direction for any organization, and I mean, maybe not even a step in the right direction would be having one pitcher debut. Having three is like, and I don't believe that they're going to have four debut next year or whatever. That's not even, I wouldn't even consider that a step in the right direction. I would just say that's, like the pitching development is excellent. But, and I feel like it's okay to recognize those kind of things, but then when you think about the whole product though, the Mariners made the playoffs in 2022 and they did not make the playoffs in 2023. That is inherently a step backwards as an organization, and that's like part of why I find the comments in yesterday's press conference just indefensible, because like it's just, and I can understand that you want to be patient at that and that you want to, operate the club sustainably with, the future and present in mind, and with a payroll that is resources are allocated well, and like certain players are being paid what they're worth, and you're not overpaying anybody. I can understand all of that. That's all like really really good things, and like I and one thing that I find frustrating is that I have every piece of confidence in this organization when it comes to things like drafting, scouting, international free agency. Like most of the time, when they claim some reliever from the Marlins off waivers, I trust them that they can, and I trust that they know what they're doing. But then when things like this happen, it's just like, just can you just tell the fans that like you understand what, like, you understand why fans are frustrated and stuff. I saying we're actually doing you a favor. How is a fan who just watched their team not make the playoffs going to think that their general manager is doing them a favor? Like, it's that's just common sense. And like I said, there was a level of room reading that needed to happen yesterday by Dipoto, and that level of room reading didn't happen, and it blew up in their faces. And quite frankly, I'm kind of glad it did, because I I feel like um, but I almost don't know if I'm glad that it blew up in their faces, because this is like the way that many GMs probably think, and many front office probably think internally, and they're just not going to tell you. And it almost goes back to the Kevin Mather situation. To be completely honest, there's things that front offices and that people internally in organizations say, that is not supposed to the public is not supposed to hear, and when the public hears it, it's a big deal. Now, obviously, there's a difference between Kevin Mather, and I would assume that there was a difference between Kevin Mather thinking he's on like a private Zoom call with other wealthy Bellevue Rotary Club members, and Jerry Dipoto, in the literal end of season presser. I would hope that they would. I would hope that, like I said, there's a level of room reading that is like there, and they're able to recognize that the fans are upset. That didn't happen. It blew up in their faces. Let's hope that that could be the wake up call. I honestly don't believe that it'll be the wake up call, but and like I said, I still have faith in this organization. I still believe, and I still have faith in this front office. I still think they can put a good product on the field. The rebuild was good. Like, they've drafted good players. Mariners have a top 10 farm system already again. Um, Cole Young, a top 100 prospect, is likely to debut next year. Not going to make the opening day roster. There's not a lot of immediate reinforcements, but this is genuinely like a top 10 farm system at worst, probably more like top 8, top 7 right now. So, and that was after being the best farm system, and then after Julio graduated and Kirby graduated and they traded Noelvi and Edwin Arroyo, they immediately dropped into a bottom 10 farm system, and a year later it's back to being healthy and like an elite farm system. That is like, that shows that they're competent. They know what they're doing, but just just do what you just I feel like I feel like this is like an obvious statement, but just do things the right way and say things the right way. That's all we ask for as fans. We ask that there's a competitive product, not just a competitive product, a winning product on the field, and we ask that our emotions and our feelings are understood, and fans were grieving. I'm still upset that this team didn't make the playoffs. I love the Mariners. And so for the general manager to like say like, oh well, we actually believe we're doing you a favor, like, I don't get to watch the Mariners in the playoffs this year. And like I love doing that. I loved it so much last year. It was one of the highlights of the year for me last year. Was watching the Mariners in the playoffs. For me personally. And now I can't I can't do it. That's not happening this year. So I don't understand how there's any favor that's been given to me by the Mariners missing the playoffs. Is there could there be a favor that, could it be a favor to the fans that this organization's in a healthier position than it has been in decades? Sure. And could Dipoto maybe phrase it like that? Hopefully, yeah. Could he, and would he not phrase it as, how he did? I would hope so. But it's just as you could tell, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. But I appreciate each and every single person for listening. I'm going to start some Kraken content soon, and I'm going to keep the off-season content coming. It's going to be, I believe I'll have another episode in a few weeks, depending on what happens. But I just wanted to touch on the situation and give an end of the season recap podcast. So thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see what happens during the off season. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully they learn their lesson, and hopefully the fans aren't given a favor that doesn't include the playoffs again. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and peace.